Hello and welcome. We have about 175 registered, and we are currently at 75. So we're going to just take one more minute and allow people to continue popping in. Okay, so hello, welcome again. I'm Leila Halau, Director of the International Affairs Forum. I'm so glad that everyone could show up. We want to thank our supporting members and sponsors for enabling us to bring programming like this to you. We are thrilled to bring this discussion to your living room. We have this collaboration, which has been truly intergenerational. Our former IF board co-chair and prized envoy Karen Siegel conceived of it. NMC and IAF's professional staff produced, and Traverse City's young leaders, Talia Gerstle and Zoe Gerstle, really drove it. The mass migration of people is a critical issue of our times, and we're really very excited to have with us 4 dedicated, hardworking individuals who have been working on the ground, trying to help refugees and others who are trying to find solutions to this very difficult problem. Talia Gerstle is a master's student in public affairs at Princeton and an intern at the UN World Refugee Agency. She will be speaking to us from Traverse City. Zoe Gerstle is graduating University of Michigan with a degree in global public health and is currently an EMT based in Ann Arbor. Both Talia and Zoe worked in Lesbos, Greece, refugee camps. Isa also works as a humanitarian worker and translator in Lesbos, where he arrived in 2016 after fleeing war in Syria. He will be joining us from Malta, where he is visiting family. Our 4th panelist, Shakib Nayab, is a cultural mediator for the International Rescue Committee. He lives and works in Lesbos, having fled Afghanistan several years ago. And he will be joining us via taped feed. Following the presentations, we will move to Q&A. We encourage you to submit your questions during the presentations, and you can use the chat feature located at the bottom of the screen in the Zoom toolbar. You can use the chat feature to submit your questions. You can also email me at lhilal@nmc.edu. And just a reminder that you are off camera and on mute by central control. So sit back and enjoy the presentation. Talia, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Leila, and we'd like to thank the International Affairs Forum for collaborating with us on this event. So before we get to the interviews, we wanted to just provide a little bit of background information on Lesbos and the European refugee crisis to provide some context for what we'll be discussing today. So 2 years ago, Zoe and I spent 3 months volunteering in a refugee camp on Lesbos, Greece. We were working with the organization Movement on the Ground and helped with a variety of tasks. We worked on a solar project, helped set up community kitchens, and ran activities with children. In the upper left, you can see Zoe, Isa, who will be interviewed later, and another friend of ours in one of the community kitchens. As a volunteer coordinator, I organized a refugee volunteer team, which now oversees many of the projects in the camp. 2 years ago, we gave a presentation in coordination with the International Affairs Forum. And so today we just wanted to share a little bit more about the current situation with respect to COVID. Next slide. So as you can see from this map, Lesbos is a Greek island that's very close to Turkey. At its closest point, only 4.1 miles separate the shores. Because of its proximity to Turkey, Lesbos has become a hotspot for refugees who are trying to enter Europe. In 2015, over 1 million people crossed onto Lesbos and the other Greek islands. At the peak, over 10,000 people were arriving every day. Refugees come from all over the world. To arrive, people have to pay a smuggler to get a spot on an overcrowded boat, typically spending about €1,000 a person. Many people have to work in Turkey for a couple of years to afford the journey. Once someone pays, there's no guarantee that they'll make it, and many people we met had to attempt the treacherous journey more than once. Next slide. Politics have a very big influence on the flows of refugees through Europe. The most influential political move affecting Lesbos was the EU-Turkey deal, which was signed in March of 2016. The purpose of it was to slow the arrival of refugees from Turkey to Greece. Under the agreement, the EU pledged 6 billion euros in aid to help the Turkish government accommodate the large number of asylum seekers there. In exchange, Turkey agreed to accept the return of asylum seekers and improve conditions. Really, the main flaw with this deal is that Turkey is not a safe country for many refugees. Many of them are forced to live in inhumane conditions, and people have even been forced back into Syria or other war-torn countries. Next slide. So when people arrive to Lesbos, they're taken to Moria, which is one of the 2 camps on the island. They have to wait here while they undergo their interviews to prove that they're fleeing a credible threat, and that Greece is the first safe country where they have landed. If their application is accepted, then they receive asylum and can then leave the island, but until this point, they must stay in the camp. This process can take anywhere from a few months to over 2 years. Through talks with people who have been on the island since the crisis began, nobody seems to be able to find any rhyme or reason to these differences in wait times. So Moria is run by the Greek authorities. It currently has nearly 20,000 people, though there's only capacity for about 3,000. Moria was built from an existing prison and very much feels like one today. Nearly half the refugees in Moria are children. Exacerbated by extreme overcrowding, many human rights abuses have been documented in the last few years. There are lines for food for hours, there's almost no medical care and no education. There are countless records of suicide attempts, including by children, and there's extremely limited psychological care. Many people believe that the Greek government intentionally keeps Moria unlivable to deter refugees in Turkey from trying to cross and even encourage voluntary deportment back to Turkey. As demonstrated by these headlines, Moria has frequently been in the news for its horrific conditions, being deemed the worst refugee camp in the world by some. And on the next slide, we're just going to show a very short video, and this is a video that was taken last weekend of people waiting in line for food. Okay, next. So the other main camp on the island is Tepe. Tepe was started by the municipality of Mytilene, which is the main city on the island, who found Moria to be an unacceptable place. Tepe houses 1,200 refugees who have been designated as the most vulnerable, including families, elderly, people with disabilities, though there are of course thousands of people in Moria who qualify as vulnerable and should be living in a place like Tepe. There are many nonprofits that are active in the camp because the municipality is much more open to collaboration than the officials in Moria. And so as a result, conditions are adequate. Meals are provided to each family 3 times a day. There's education, healthcare, and activities for both children and adults. And on the right, you can see Isa helping to study mattresses, and this is while he was working as a volunteer in Tepe. Tepe has a camp-wide philosophy to restore dignity to the asylum-seeking process. For example, instead of using the word refugee, they use the word resident. Instead of the word camp, they frequently use the word village. So though conditions are better in Tepe than they are in Moria, it's still not easy to live there. Residents cannot work while living in either camp and have few opportunities to create change in their lives. Living with limited purpose and autonomy for years is an enormous mental burden. And later on, we'll be talking or hearing more from both Shakib and Isa about the current conditions in both camps. Next. So though we're focusing on Europe, I want to briefly highlight the failure of the US to resettle refugees. The refugee resettlement program in the US was already very low, but was dramatically cut under the Trump administration from resettling 110,000 to below 20,000 each year, the lowest number since the resettlement program began. Tepe demonstrates that in light of federal policies, local governments, including Traverse City, have the ability to create more welcoming communities. The rest of this event will cover what it's like on the island today. So I want to provide a quick update on recent developments since we were on Lesbos in 2017. The last slide, yeah. In the past several months, Turkey has repeatedly threatened to open its border, which would violate the EU-Turkey deal and has already put thousands of refugees' lives at risk. Turkey's threats, coupled with rising number of refugees on Lesbos in the last year, have also caused heightened tensions between locals, aid workers, and refugees. After years of being gracious hosts, violence and extreme right protests by locals have begun to rise, with some calling on the EU to do more and others calling for the closing of camps. As of last week, there were nearly 40,000 refugees on the Greek islands, according to the UN. Over a third are children, and the majority of people are from Afghanistan, Syria, and Somalia. There have been calls from human rights organizations, the UN, and governments to work to move people off the islands to mainland Greece. Despite these urgent pleas, last week only 343 people were moved off. Some small efforts have also begun to move some of the more than 1,000 unaccompanied minors from the islands. Luckily, as of today, there have been no cases of COVID in the camps, though there have been a few cases on Lesbos among local Greeks. Testing is available for residents of Tepe, but not for those living in Moria. So as I think you can hopefully now imagine, at least a little bit, all of these issues present serious and life-threatening challenges on their own, and the arrival of COVID would be catastrophic. We'll now be hearing from Zoe, who will be interviewing Isa.
All right, as we wait for Isa, there he is. Hi, Isa, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too, Zoe.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. It's really great to have you being part of this conversation.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys for doing this.
Of course. Well, for those of you who don't know, this is Isa Oso. Isa is a humanitarian worker and interpreter. After fleeing the Syrian civil war, he arrived on Lesbos in 2016. While living on Lesbos, he was a site management assistant for the Tepe refugee camp. He was also a coordinator with the Barcelona Foundation soccer program and an official translator for Help International USA. So we are so honored to have you here, Isa. I'm wondering, to start us off and set the context a little bit, if you can tell us about why you left Syria and how you came to Lesbos.
I left Syria because of the war, of course. It was really worse there. Bombing. There's no future. I left when I was 21 years old. Left from my city to different city of Syria. I live in Raqqa and then went to Aleppo as a smuggler, from city to city smuggler, and then went to other city called Idlib, also smuggler. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I went to Turkey as a smuggler, worked for like 11 hours, make it to Turkey. I spent there for around 10 days, arranging with a smuggler how I can get to Greece. It took me around 2 weeks. We take the boat around 2 o'clock in the morning. And then we were around 52 people. We spent a few hours and then we get to the borders of Greece, between Greece and Turkey. And then the Frontex of Greece was driving by next to us, the boat, around like 20 minutes. They called the Coast Guard of Turkey to come and take us back. They came to the borders. The wave was really high. So they tried to push the boat 3 times to turn us back to Turkey, but they couldn't because of the waves. And then after that, we because of the children also, they start like crying. Everybody started screaming. It was like around 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock. And then the Coast Guard, after like they saw Turkey couldn't make it, take us back to Turkey. They came and then take us to the port of Lesbos island in Greece. We waited there for I think 4 hours, and then around 9 o'clock in the morning they take us to Moria camp, the first like registration camp in the island. I was there for 8 days, and then moved to the other camp, the family camp Tepe because it was a family case. I was with my sister.
Yeah, that was really lucky that you got moved to Tepe. I'm really happy that that happened for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But you did live in Moria for a little while, and then you continued to work there even after you received asylum. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like in Moria these days?
These days, it's really crazy because of the virus. People not allowed to go to the town. The condition is really bad. The camp only fits 3,000 people, and then there are around 18,000 right now. And then the food line, you have to stand in the food like a few miles to get your food. There's like few thousand people right in front of you getting their food. The condition they're really bad. In each ice box, they live like a few different families from different countries, from different religions. The miners company, there's sections, 3 different sections. There's 2 sections for the miners. They put around in each ice box around between 20 to 30 people in each room all together. And then there's also section C for the single woman, the same thing, between 20 to 30 people.
Yeah, and those ISO boxes are really small.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's in each ice box, there's only 1 bathroom and 1 shower. Then imagine how crazy.
So on Lesbos, you have worked with many different organizations, and there are many refugees who do work with the NGOs. Is it important that refugees are involved working with the NGOs in the camps?
Yes, of course, because it makes us feeling doing things, not like just sitting, we cannot do anything. It's always good to meet different people from like different countries, to learn their cultures, their language, When I arrived to Greece, I didn't speak any word. I planned and start like helping with my friend, David. We start football with movement in the ground 3 years ago. And then that's how I didn't go to school. I learned from the volunteers, the English speakers. I heard and then I learned, practiced.
Yeah. And I know when I was there, it was also really helpful to have people like you who could speak English with many people from all over the world, and then also could speak Arabic with the residents of the camp. So it was an essential part of the workings of the camp.
Yes.
Yeah. So to open it up a little bit more, looking at Greece and the European Union, how have their responses to refugees contributed to the current situation in the camps?
Can you repeat it again, please?
Mm-hmm. So Greece and the European Union, what have they done to make things better or worse for life in the camps?
The European Union, being in Greece, a lot of money to keep the refugees in Greece. And then they are making it like a worse place, so nobody come anymore.
Greece
That's
is
how. Yes, exactly. And of course, when I arrived, I didn't know that situation is going to be look like that. The condition, the food things, because the very basic thing is the condition where you live, and then the food. There's a lot of people, if they know that, they will never like come to Greece or anywhere. I would rather stay home and then die there, and then don't come and live in this kind of condition.
Yeah. Well, Issa, that is the time that we have right now to interview, but we'll have lots of time later for questions from the audience. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. It's so nice to talk to you as always, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, sir.
We're now going to watch a video from the Moria Corona Awareness Team. It was just very recently made This organization is creating the majority of the response to coronavirus in Moria. And this very short clip has some really good footage that I think will help us all understand a little bit what life looks like on the ground.
مسئولیت خود می‌دانیم که ما با خبر باشیم، نه تمام مردم کم باید از این موضوع با خبر باشند که ما فعلا در مقطع زمانی ویروس کرونا زندگی می‌کنیم، باید متوجه خود باشیم. من دین محمد هستم، در افغانستان خودم فارماسیست هستم. 5 ماه میشه که در کمپوزیا زندگی می‌کنم و فعلا یکی از اعضای فعال تیم با خبری و اطلاع رسانی در مورد ویروس کرونا در داخل کمپ. ما خب به این عقیده هستیم که اصلا خدمات دارویی داخل کمپ نیست که حتی به نظر من اگر تداوی نشیم جلوگیری بهترین راه است. ما می‌خوایم فقط راه‌های جلوگیری برای مردم یاد بدیم. تمام اعضای رفیوجی داخل کمپ هستند. ما یک نفرم عضو غیر داخل کمپی نداریم. و با وضعیتی که ما داخل کمپ داریم و وضعیت بهداشتی بسیار رقتباری که داریم، اگر یک واقعی ویروس کرونا اینجا تست شود و رابطه شود، ولی میتونیم بگیم که اینجا یک واقعی انسانی را خطر داریم. فقط امروز دولت یونان تصمیم گرفته که کمپ بخواد کنترل کنه، از رفتن مردم به شهر جلوگیری کنه. خیلی زیاد چندین موقعیت‌هایی هست که اینجا میتونن ویروس کرونا به شکل بسیار وسیع انتشار پیدا کنه. مثلا صفحه غذا هست که مردم بسیار با فاصله نزدیک حتی تماس با یکدیگر از آن نفر در یک زمان استفاده می‌باشند که بسیار خطرناک است که متأسفانه اینجا آب نیست. مردم با کمبود آب بسیار به شدت مواجه است. ما در ساعت‌های خیلی محدود مثلا روز یک ساعت آب داریم، دیگه آب نداریم که برای تمیزی و تست‌های خود سرجان خودش آماده کنیم دیگه پس استفاده کنیم.
Okay, we are now going to watch an interview with Talia and our next panelist, Shakib Naib. Shakib Naib is a cultural mediator and humanitarian worker from Afghanistan. He came to Lesvos as a refugee also in 2016. And while living in Tepe, he volunteered with several NGOs for a year and a half. He currently works for the International Rescue Committee as an interpreter. And Talia and Shakib pre-recorded this interview on Saturday because it's currently 11 p.m. on Lesbos. And Shakib has to wake up early for Ramadan tomorrow before going into work. So we figured we would let him get his sleep and record the interview ahead of time. As you watch the video, please feel free to send your questions in the chat. You can find the chat function at the bottom of your screen. And you can also email Leila at lhalal@nmc.edu. There are many of you, but we will hope to get to most of your questions at the Q&A just after this video. So please enjoy the interview with Talia and Shakib.
So we would now like to welcome Shakib. We're very grateful to have him with us here today. Welcome.
Thanks, Guy. It's my pleasure.
Okay, so I can imagine that there's a lot of fear that among refugees living both in Tepe and Moria. And so we'd like to talk a little bit more kind of about what changes have been made in the camps. So can you tell us, can people leave the camps? Are they locked down in quarantine? And so if you can just tell us a little bit more about what's happened.
Sure. I'm starting from the which place, because Tepe, which is I'm working there. So, and I'm starting from there, then I will go to Moria, what's going on there and what's going on here. So in Tepe, we have rules for each person of the family member from 12 years old until up. Because under 12, you're not allowed them to go outside the Tepe, even not now, even before that wasn't coronavirus. So each person of family, from each family, one person can go to the supermarket 2 times per week to get their stuff from grocery store and come back to Tepe. So they should have their document with them in case if the police catch them. This is their right to go to the grocery store, and this is their right to go and buy their food. And also from Tepe, we are giving a special paper for them, like a permission that, okay, this person belongs to Tepe and this is his house and he's going for like 1 hour or 2 hours. He's going to buy his stuff and come back. So we have these rules in Tepe. And Moria also at the beginning of the gate that you're going to enter Moria, beginning of Olive Grove. So there is a volunteers from some NGO that they are working and they are giving when you're entering to the camp, police to the camp. So they have a soap and they give it to you and you can wash your hands and there is a water. They're sitting and everything created by volunteer, and most of the things are running by the community volunteer. It means beneficiary. It means, let's say, refugee. I would like to say beneficiary instead of refugee, you know? So they are sitting there and they are providing water and soap and urgent promotion, at least what they can do. And this is the best things that they are trying to do to protect the people and protect themselves and protect the others. So the only people that can enter inside the Moria, only the people that they are living there and the people that they are working there and the people that they are passing this procedure. For example, if someone want to come from outside the Moria, they have to pass this procedure, wash their hands, be clean, then they can come. Otherwise, no. And for these people in Moria, they are not allowed to come to town. I mean, in Mytilene. Yeah. So because beside Moria, there is a market, which is not enough for all these people. Let's say it's too much for them. They have the children and they are sick people and they are vulnerable and they are disability people. So they are going and waiting in the line. Let's say from 5 o'clock in the morning, they're waiting for this market to get open to slowly so they can get the chance to find their food. Imagine 200 and 300 people are waiting in the line, and sometimes police is getting crazy because when the car passing, so police has to protect the people and has to shout, but you know, it's too much. It's too much for these people and it's too much for the police because they cannot. But this is the decision that they come from the law, Greek law.
Are there any other changes to how people can get food? I know that typically in Moria, people had to wait in very long lines, which you kind of mentioned, or changes in terms of the way that people are socializing. Do you think that people are trying to stay more in their tents and containers, or are people just, if you can explain a little bit more kind of how everyday life has been changed?
Yeah, for sure. If we imagine our life and their life, it's very different. And for me, they are a hero that they are fighting for their right and they are living there. And every day they're facing a new problem, a new issue.
Yeah.
Again, they are standing on their feet and they're fighting for their right. For me, they're a hero.
Yeah.
Because those people, they have nothing. There is no medical services. Even though there is, but how they can support 20,000 people?
Yeah.
Today, personally, I walk from there because I worked there today. I cried. I started crying. There is a trash. There is not urgent permission, which is now we ran there to start slowly doing an urgent permission for these people. Yeah. If you see the children, they're walking. There is no food. There is no food. There is not clean food. There is nothing. The children are walking and seeing the bread nearby the trash box, and they're eating.
Yeah.
For sure, this is not easy for these people to handle this situation. And also inside the Moria, where they are distributing croissant, which is the normal things, croissant in the morning, the people start fighting between each other. Why? Why? Because they know that this is not enough. And every day they are seeing the same issue. Okay, if I don't fight, if I don't push someone to fall down, then jump and take a croissant, so it will be finished. And there is no food, there is no breakfast for me.
Yeah.
Because they are receiving less, because this is not enough for them. So they are start fighting for their right to have their own things.
So I read in the news that there are some plans to evacuate some people, I believe from Moria, off the island to mainland Greece, as well as a special focus on unaccompanied minors. So I was wondering if you know about this or what people are saying on Lesbos.
About the minors, after a long time, finally, some country, they raise their hands. I have to say thank you so much for them, and the others should do the same, because this is the minors that they will help the country that they are taking them now. They will be something there. They will help the economy. They will educate, and they will help them. They will be someone. Some country that they took, I think Germany and Luxembourg.
Yeah.
They took some.
Okay, well, this has been really great. I guess, is there anything else that you think is important to share, just to give people a better sense of what it's like to be on the ground there?
Yeah. For me, this is what I'm believing. Because I passed this life, I passed this situation. I know and I can feel these people.
Yeah.
We can make a laugh and we can share our love to the people.
Yeah.
And these people, they deserve to receive some love.
Yeah.
We're all human beings. We're all human beings. We're all one. Religion, skin, what you believe, what I believe, all these things. I didn't want to leave my home until your home doesn't want you anymore. This is the decision from home. No one's want to leave their home. No one want to leave their family. I have never ever thought that one day I'm gonna leave my sweet mom and my sweet family. But you never know. One day the home's gonna send you somewhere. This life is not that long to hate someone. Life is very short. The time is passing and we don't know how to control this time. But just give a love to the people. Just give a love to everyone.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and more. I think this is really helpful to give people who are very far from Lesbos a little bit better of an understanding of what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. So like we said, unfortunately, Shakib cannot join us live today for the Q&A, but we have gotten a lot of really great questions. So we will just dive right in. Go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah. The first question, Isa, is if you have any family still in Syria and if you think that you will ever go back there someday.
I would love to go back there, of course, when it's safe. Yes, I do have family back home. My family, I have a big family. I have only brother and sister out. My family, we are 6 sisters and 9 brothers. And then the rest are in Syria, back home. They cannot leave because it's too expensive, so much money.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is about the refugee situation kind of more broadly. So Isa, do you think that the refugee situation and the camps in Greece will get better? Do you have hope that things will improve or no?
Look, between Moria and Tepe, there's only a few kilometers, like 4 kilometers, I think. And then the situation a lot better. If they need to make it better, they will. You have been in Tepe and then you have been in Moria, and then you know the situation, what it looks like.
So why do you think it's not better already?
I don't know, because of Moria, it's the arrival area, and then the example for the refugees. When I have friends, I have a lot of friends called me, they want to come to Greece, and I don't tell them come, or I don't tell them don't come. I just explain to him what does look like the situation, and then no one of my friends, the one I know, came here. Everybody decided to stay in Turkey or back to home in Syria.
Yeah. This was, I know, something, it was a topic that Zoe and I discussed with a lot of people while we were on Lesbos. Is it's just kind of shocking how different these two camps are. And like Isa just said, they're so close. And so, I think a lot of people think that Moria is being kept so horrible intentionally, exactly what you're saying, kind of as a way to deter people. So we had another question, Isa, about what countries refugees are coming from.
There are Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Africa, a few different places in Africa, and Eritrea, and Pakistan, Iran. There are the people who live in Moria camp.
Yeah, they're coming from all over.
Yeah.
So when people do receive asylum, someone asked, where do they typically go after they receive their papers? And what does life look like for them?
Basically, after you receive your asylum, they cut off on you your like monthly payment from the UN, which is €90 for each person, and then the accommodation they don't give you anymore right now, and then the rules, you have to be you can travel for 3 months, and then you have to go back to Greece for 6 months, and then you're not allowed to work anywhere, only in Greece.
Yeah. So I know, just kind of another thing with that is that a lot of the people that we met on Lesbos have gone to other countries in Europe at this point, though a lot of them are still living on mainland Greece, but in another camp on mainland Greece. So I guess a lot of people do end up staying in Greece for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So another question that we have that's a hard one because there's no easy or direct answer, I think, but is do you think that people on Lesbos support refugees? I think there are people who do and people who don't. So if you can share a little bit more about that.
There are some, but not a lot. An example, when I go to the supermarket, the very beginning when I arrived, I walked on to the supermarket, to the AB store, and then I just seen the workers there looking at me. They think I'm gonna steal things from the shop or from the store. They make me really, really uncomfortable, and then I left really mad. There are a lot of racist cases against the refugees, especially last 2 months. They were crazy about that. Even they start beating up the volunteers who are working there. I don't know if you do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, I was seeing some about that from friends who are still volunteering there. And even from Greek people that I know who are saying, our fellow Greek people, we don't need to be turning on the refugees or the humanitarian workers. It seemed like there was a big conflict from the residents of Lesbos about, it's really hard. Their island is very small. There's not so many people and they don't have enough resources to take care of the refugees, but that's also not the refugees' fault, right?
And exactly.
Yeah.
They have the right to protect their town, and then their home. There are a lot of like refugees in the island, and then there's like some refugees as well, like do bad things. There are like some people like do really like small things, make all the refugees looks bad. And then there's like if there's one Greek guy does something or group really small, also like people they're gonna say the Greek people did this. If somebody from Algeria or something like did something and he stole from the shop or like make a fight between him and someone else, they're not gonna say he's from Syria, he's from Algeria, he's from Afghanistan. They're gonna say they're refugees.
Yeah, you all get grouped into one group,
Exactly.
which is not fair. So a different question came. You said that people are leaving the camps, or Shakib mentioned that people can leave the camps to buy groceries. People are wondering where refugees get money to buy groceries.
They get €90 every month from the UN, and then there are a lot of people do have money, and when they come to Greece, there are so many people like have money. The €90 you're gonna spend it like in one day. That's nothing. They have like their brothers. There's a lot of rich families. I know someone who like he's from Yemen. He was living in the tent and outside of Moria and like between the trees, the trees, yeah. And he bought like a fridge. He bought the oven, like he bought everything. He bought like a smart TV. He couldn't like rent a house in Mytilene. I know people will wonder why he doesn't just rent a place in Mytilene. Most of the Greek, they don't give houses to the refugees. I was rent a house in the town because of my friend. They were American and then they were like volunteers. So they give to the volunteers, not to me. That's how I got the house.
So that's discrimination, that they don't want to rent to refugees.
Yes.
Is it a law, or it's just the people who own the house?
I think just the people, not the law. I don't think so.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people already have learned a lot in the last 40 minutes. But someone asked, what is something that you wish that people understood better about the asylum seeking process, or just about the refugee situation in general? So something that you think many people probably do not know and that they should know.
Sorry, can you repeat it again?
Yeah. So what is something that you think people should know about the refugee situation, or about what it's like to apply to be a refugee, the asylum process, something that you think people probably don't know?
I don't understand the question clearly, but I will respond to how I understand.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's no one who want to be a refugee, and then there's no one want to be treated bad. When I was in Greece, I get treated bad most of the time. I'm visiting her family in Malta. People are here so nice. Like I feel so happy. My personality is different. Like I feel more comfortable with people. Is that what you mean in your question, or something different?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think just a lot of people maybe read the news, or there's a lot of information, but it's hard to know what's real and what's not real, and what it's actually like to be a refugee.
You remember the fire happened in California?
Yeah.
Imagine if like the city near to California try to close the borders and the people who live in California, and then the people running from California to the closest city, and then they won't accept them in the city. They're gonna just like be in really bad condition. They're gonna die. They're gonna I think people, they should like open and then help as much as they can. We all like human, you know? It doesn't matter the color, it doesn't matter the religion in the end.
Yeah. And actually someone else brought up a similar point. They were wondering how people from all over the world can come live in this camp and get along. And how does that work when not everyone speaks the same language and people are coming from such different places? And sometimes people come together and work together really well. Does that happen, or is it hard to get along?
It's hard to get along. Because most of the time Syrian likes Syrian, Afghanis like Afghanis, you know, Africans like Africans. Because the same language, and then most of the time like they get in fights because they understand it, like they don't understand each other.
Yeah. I think one thing that was really interesting, or really sad, I guess, to me was that, you know, there's in Moria and in Tepe, there are many people from many places, from different countries and religions and backgrounds and everything. And in Moria, there's a lot of news about fires and about fights, and that people are not getting along. And then in Tepe, it was much more peaceful, and people really seemed to get along a lot better, at least from what we could see. And so, you know, it's the same people living in both camps, but under really horrible conditions in Moria, where there's 6-7 times the number of people that there should be, and not enough food and not enough anything. You know, there are a lot more fights, and in a place like Tepe, where there is enough food and education and health, it's very peaceful.
Exactly. When you get like the things you need, the very basic, you get in Tepe camp, the family camp, you get your food, the breakfast, come to your like isobox, the lunch time, come to your isobox, the dinner, come to your isobox, your children going to different activities, learn English, football, practicing, doing everything, you know? I'm not gonna look for like anything bad or like to make a fight with someone, but there are like in Moria, people live in the same isobox, few different, in 2017. And each isobox and section A now it's for the minors. I used to work there. There are more than 8 families. Imagine they cut the isobox with a blanket, meter of meter, and then they got their own space. It doesn't matter how many people they are. Really bad, really bad. I couldn't imagine like how people stay there.
Yeah, and just for everyone, an isobox is it's very small. It's like yeah.
Exactly, and everybody has like different cultures, you know?
Yeah.
The Arabs, everybody has different cultures, and then they get agree between like few different things. Their children, they fight, don't walk by me, you know, don't shout, don't scream, don't talk, we need to sleep. This kind of things make all these problems.
Yeah. So kind of going back to COVID, the virus, what do you think might happen if the virus enters the camps? Until now, we know that there have been no cases in Moria, no cases in Tepe, but I guess what do you think might happen if it comes?
I hope not, and if it will happen, it will get a lot of people infected. There's no protection, there's nothing there. There's like someone just trying to do like hand washing, you know, but no, people standing in the line, more than a few thousand people to get their food every different day. It depends how, yeah. If there's a few thousand, one person has it, or they're gonna have it at the same time, because each guy he's gonna give to the other, and then they have no space between them. They are like, you saw them how like standing near to each other.
So you're in Malta now, but are your friends who are on Lesbos, are they scared? What are they thinking about?
They're doing okay. They are at home now. And I have friends as well. They are at Moria camp. And then there are who families also live in Tepe. But they try as much as they can not go out, like don't do anything.
So the next question came, I think 5 different people asked the same question.
Okay.
And they want to know how people in the United States can help. So many times we are asked to donate money to organizations like the IRC, the International Rescue Committee, and people want to know, does this money actually help refugees? Or if not, what is helpful?
You know, when the organization get their money, they gonna decide where does the money go and which project they planning to. But I believe the very basic thing should be going for the food or like close the distribution, the condition. This is the very like 3 basic things. They can like donate to the organizations, but they have to follow these organizations what they're doing. You know.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
for me, the very basic thing, the condition, the food, and the winter was really bad. When it's rain and people that stand outside. There's a lot of people I know, and then I see, because I used to go every day to the camp. I have like every day football session for them, soccer practice, and I see people they like trying really hard to get a few more outfit for them, and then they have to stand in the line. Their clothes really wet. Yeah, I think it's the best thing, the very best thing, the condition how they live, which is like really bad.
So after this event, since we have everyone's emails from registering, we'll be sending out an email with links to 2 different organizations that we believe are doing good work and believe are making good use of people's money, and that the money is actually going to support the situation directly on Lesbos. One of those is Movement on the Ground, which is the organization that Zoe and I were volunteering with and working with, that Isa also spent some time with. And like we mentioned, they're both in Tepe and in Moria doing work. They're kind of one of the main organizations in Moria doing work outside of the camp. Moria has really restricted the organizations, like I mentioned, that can be entering the camp, even more so now. And so they've been really instrumental in creating housing and just like helping people that are living on the outskirts of the camp, because like I mentioned, it's impossible for 18,000 people to be living in a place for 3,000. So we will be sending information to everyone after this with some links of organizations to donate to. Kind of as Zoe and I were talking about this, we're talking about, of course, that there are communities in need also in the US. And so we definitely encourage everyone to look into mutual aid groups that are active in their own communities.
And then the last part of being aware and helping this situation, Isa, you can tell me if you think this is correct, but I think it's really important for people to know what's going on. Right, so you know about how horrible Moria is because you are there, and also your friends are telling you about it, but for us, we're really far away. And I think it's important for us to be reading about it and watching videos about it, so that we know what's happening and the implications of our governments and the worldwide governments in the world responses to refugees. So we have time for one more question.
Yeah, sure.
And I think people want to know what your plans are, and if you hope to keep working with NGOs or stay in Malta. Where would you like to go from here?
You can't really do this more than like a few years. I have been doing it already for like 3.5 years. The situation really sad and really hard. You can't hold it for like a long time. I can't see like every day like really sad things, and then I cannot do anything about it. I also need to focus more about my future. For now, I'm trying to like work and support my family more until I know they have everything. I will focus more about myself.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm really glad to hear that you're with your family and you're able to support them and be with them. And also just thank you so much from me, and we're hearing lots and lots of thank yous from the audience for everything you've done, because it's really spectacular. And we're glad that there are people like you doing such good and kind work. So Isa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I want to say something.
Sure.
I will say, for any of you, if you get the opportunity to travel and then see the situation of Lesbos or like of refugees crisis, I'm really sure Zoe and Talia, a change of your life. So if you get the opportunity, please go there and then see how is it, and then you will appreciate yourself. What do you have now?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So thank you, Isa and Zoe and Talia, for a beautifully delivered program. We, as Zoe mentioned, have gotten so many comments from the audience, thank yous, and saying that this was a very special program. And we will be sending those meaningful points and recognition to Isa to share with him as well, and Shakib, who couldn't join us today. We were at about 150 participants. So thank you, everyone, for joining us and for allowing the discussion about refugees to continue in Traverse City. The IF will continue its virtual programming until we can meet again together safely in person. Our next event is on May 21st. We will be hearing from the intrepid Antarctic explorer, Professor James McClintock. He will present a very storied tale of climate change and the Antarctic and the broader world. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for that program on May 21st at 4 p.m. and sign up for our e-newsletter at tciaf.com if you have not already, so you can keep informed of our events. Thank you again, everyone, for participating, and have a wonderful evening.